So
Clearly. All right. What I'd like to do now, since we have a little free time, is ask again if anyone has first any comments, questions for Bob. I'll take that as a no. I think that I would like to ask if we could go around the room, any rumors, gossip, announcements, slander, libel, any of that stuff. All right. What I'd like to do is ask each of us in turn, say where they're from and what was the first fourth that got them excited about fourth. If you're not excited, then never mind, you can skip that part. I was once excited. I'm Kevin Appert, program chair. Bob?
It's interesting. I can date when I learned the fourth. Like I say, I've been pulled east to Xerox in Rochester, and they had computing center, you know, whole field full of processors, Amdahl and IBM, and the whole an acre of disk drives and so forth. But I happened to meet some guys who were out there. I mean, I was working in headquarters, but I met some guys who were there from the Webster Computing Center. In any case, one way or another, we all decided Tron, the original Tron came out, which really was a threshold. The amount of money poured into the computing in that movie was just groundbreaking. But we all decided to get stoned and go see Tron. And one of these, I mean, I was doing APL, but one of these guys from the hardware center said, "Gee, if you like APL, you ought to check out this this fourth stuff." And it said Byte just had a magazine on it, so I got the Byte magazine, and instantly from then on, I mean, that, if you will, is the start of Fourth Cozy, because immediately the use, I mean, here you have a language which is unmatched for creating more language in. Well, what language are you going to produce? You're going to produce the highest level mathematical notation and so forth. And so in between, with, you know, what is that, 40 years history, it still is sort of like, okay, to complete that is the whole thing. So you can write these statistics and the machine learning and all of this succinctly enough to well, I can only understand things that are small enough to fit in my head. So to get a notation where you can express these algorithms succinctly enough so that they fit in my head, that's my goal. But
can I tell a fun story?
Go ahead.
Okay. The Fourth Interest Group was founded at BAMUG, Bay Area Microprocessors Use Group in Emeryville, where we chatted and met afterwards. And then we went to Homebrew and we met after that at the Student Lounge. And then our first official meetings were in my office in Hayward. And we had about 8 people that would come. And it was on our first, second, or third meeting, somewhere pretty early. Tron was playing in the theater, Southland Theater nearby. And so after the meeting, somebody said, well, you know, this new computer-generated movie Tron is playing, let's go see it. So we adjourned the meeting, and about all 8 of us went over to the Southland Theater, sat in the front row, watched Tron, loved it. I believe we sat a second time and watched it through a whole second time. And so that was our downfall. That was the start of digital movies. And if I understand right by memory, they only had 1 or 2 minutes, a couple of minutes of CGI. And it had taken them something like 2 weeks of runtime to develop that on some supercomputer. So they intercut live action and simulated action and the CGI. And so you don't really realize it, but they showed the pieces of the CGI intercut and reverse cut and so on. And so I think they expanded it out to like 10 or 15 minutes of the CGI, all done from the first minute and a half that was actually live done. So anyway, the Tron was born just about the same time the Fort Interest Group was born. That's it.
One of my friends, Judson Rosebush, was a real pioneer in computer animation, working in APL, and actually he did a bunch of the opening logos and so forth. But also he had the bit part. There's this bit that sort of interchanging isosahedron or whatever, and that was Judson did that piece, and that was in APL. But Judson's major business was making things like the CBS Sports Spectacular logo, some of the early logos, because the only thing that you could possibly produce, he rented space on a Harris computer overnight. He would run it overnight, but it would take days to produce even 30 seconds of computer animation. So the only market for for his stuff was these computer commercials. They'll throw more money into 30 seconds of commercial than anything. Yeah, he got to Carnegie Hall. He actually his office was Caruso's old studio in Carnegie Hall. So one way to get to Carnegie Hall is to rent space in it.
How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. So,
my name is Doug Hammond. I'm on here in San Mateo. The first introduction to Forth was at a Exitron stringy floppy meeting. That was an auxiliary hard drive sort of device that would go onto a TRS-80. And a guy by the name of Vern Tallman came and showed us how the little stringy floppy was like a virtual hard drive. And that way you didn't have to use a cassette player for storage. And he was saying, I have virtual memory. He told me all these wonderful things about Forth. And at that time, I looked at it and I said, okay, I want to go there. So I bought a stringy floppy to put it on my TRS-80 and begin to use the TRS-80 with always the thought in mind, well, someday I'll figure out how to use Forth to do all the things that this guy was talking about. But meanwhile, the industry moves so fast, the next thing you know, I'm selling Chromemcos. And so I can get a hard drive for my Chromemco. Well, that was like $600 or $700. I can't afford that. So anyway, Forth started my interest in computing. I'm not a computer guy. I'm more of a RF microwave guy. But it was interesting because it was so powerful. And when I went to the meetings in particular, because I went to one in Hayward, and then I started going to ones down in, I forget where it was now, but what I realized is there was a lot of interesting guys there that taught physics, science, math. I subscribed to Scientific American as a kid. I was a wannabe geek, but I didn't know how to do it. And, my school was terrible. So it took me 18 years to get my bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Science, but I did it all at night. But then I worked in the electronic industry, so I learned a lot. And many times I just fell back on the mindset of people who program in Forth is compact, dense, to the point, minimal crap. And I go, boy, I want to get there, but my mind doesn't work that way well. So that's it.
Well,
Thank you,
my
Doug.
use with Fourth started in 1980 with my first job. We were using PDP 1173, no, 1143. It was running RSX 11. And, you know, we just showed this stuff. So what I did was I printed out the listing for Fourth, you know, not the source, but the actual compiled stuff. And I'm going, what is this stuff? And it doesn't make sense. So I kept analyzing. I'm like, oh, here's the name of the word. Okay. And this is some address that goes off. And oh, this is the one that tells how to execute the thing. And then, oh, these are the other words that go along with it. You know, and I went, oh. And I thought, wow, that's cool. So after that, when I got my first PC, you know, I got, what was it, Fourth 83, got it running. And I went, oh man, this is really getting great, you know, but I had to work as usual. So yeah, I said, I just fell in love with Fourth, and there were no Fourth groups down in Southern California, because my first job was in Costa Mesa, California. And it was computer graphics. And there were some pretty obnoxious people there. And I only stayed there for like maybe a year, 3 months. Then I moved on to Calcom. I was working in the system division. And my job was to add rubber banding, you know, to the graphics, which I was able to do. And that's interesting because I said, I know I have it in storage, but I have the original Fourth listing and all the work that I did at Calcom with, you know, rubber banding, joystick rotation, and area fill. You know, and all those code is written in assembly language, 6800 assembly language. You know, that's back when men were programmers. You know. You know, the ones that would chew tobacco, smoke a cigar, and not spit. So, yeah. And like I said, ever since, and when I got up to the Bay Area, that's when I started going to the SVFIG meetings. I believe I started in 2004 or 2005, something like that. And just continued going on till today. Now I have to do it remotely because I'm living in Las Vegas. Just so you know, I don't gamble, because you know, when I go over to the Red Rock Casino, you know, all the slot machines and poker, that's just, you know, romper room for adults. So anyway, yeah, like I said, I'm going to continue with Fourth, and hopefully be able to produce something like the C to Fourth translator. Marry a real-time executive to Fourth, and be able to say, you know, run Fourth, say like on a Raspberry Pi. One of the things I would do there is I would turn the Raspberry Pi into a USB hub, just so I could show this is how you do, you know, transferring through a USB hub. You know. And because it's a real-time executive, I will be able to interrupt handlers in Fourth, so that they can say, okay, I got this thing, let me send it off to this task, and it'll do the routing and stuff like that. So anyway, that's my experience with Fourth. All right. Next.
I'm Kevin Afford. I'm your program chairman. I'm in Sunnyvale, California. And my first Fourth, I think, was so there I was. I saw the Byte Fourth issue, the first one. And I had bought a floppy disk Fourth for the Ohio Scientific C1P or Super Board. The fourth was basically Fig Fourth with very little added. I think that the only thing that they had to do was emit and block and key and maybe beep, but or bell, as we used to call it back in the olden days. But other than that, I think it was off-the-shelf stock Fig Fourth. There were a lot of those in those days. Very little effort put into rising above the wonderful starting point that was given to us by Bill and the rest of the original Fig implementers, which I think Bill and others have bemoaned, at least in the past. But it allowed me to actually do things with the C1P, which I guess didn't really have an operating system. It had BASIC that could read and write to the disk, store programs, and my recollection is that the storing and fetching data off of disk wasn't easy in BASIC, and there really wasn't much of anything else. Dennis, where was your fourth? I think Dennis might be doing actual work. All right, Brad, I'm interested to know.
Yeah,
There we are.
So I first heard of Fourth. I believe it was from, and I've not got a copy of the book now, but I believe I tracked down the book it was in. It was this book, and I had read about Fourth in this Encyclopedia of Personal Computer Programming. They had a great long list of languages, and of all the ones that were described, that one seemed most interesting to me. But I didn't do anything particularly serious with Fourth until I came across Frank Sargent's Pygmy Fourth on some BBS or other, and I think that was my first experience with Fourth. And then many years later, finding myself in the Bay Area, I realized, my gosh, this is where Fig is, and I've been hearing about Fig for ages and ages, and I ought to go check it out.
So I noticed Dennis unmuted.
Yep, I made it, I think. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine.
Excellent. Yeah, I had to open up my resume to find out the date. It was way back in '78, and I was working in Kalamazoo, Michigan, on data processing stuff first, and then transferred over to the engineering side of Allen Test Products, and contacted Fourth Incorporated, and it's been a nightmare since then.
Nightmare.
I've done way too many things in Fourth, and actually had started doing some Fourth in the last couple weeks again, and found out that my PF database stuff no longer works. And oh crap, that didn't work. So got somebody to write some JSON code in Python, and that got me going, kept me going. But I'm coming on 50 years of this industry, And although it has been a enjoyable path, I have had the best career that I think I could have ever had, with a lot of that fourth. Probably, yeah, I think I calculated at one point in time that I had done 30 years in fourth. So over half of my career, fourth made me money, kept me alive. It's not keeping me alive anymore. I do many things. I'm about to become an architect officially, and move up to Washington. Haven't lived in Washington yet, so that will be interesting.
Washington State or DC?
Washington State, Bellevue, Washington. T-Mobile is promoting me, which means I go where they want me to be. But I still don't know when I'm going to do that, when I'm going to move. And so I don't know. I wrote you a note, Kevin, an email that said, I'll go to the Willie's in July, but I don't know if I'll be here then. I haven't figured out. I got too many things happening. Yeah, I don't know when I'm going to actually start to move. They haven't figured that out yet. But that's mine. I've done too many things. I even have a patent about fourth for Allen Test products. It's been interesting.
So did Fourth Incorporated write something for Allen, or did they just sell you Polyfourth?
They wrote the original system. And that was part of Dean Sanderson's stuff. It was one of the very, very early expert systems. And therefore, it sort of worked. It did as good as any mechanic could do on a good day. Sometimes mechanics would have great days and find something very quickly that we couldn't do. We had a 15-minute run on an engine on a car, and it was always 15 minutes. And then we'd come up with a laundry list. And that's basically was the state of the art at the time.
A laundry list of things to fix. Could you input the amount of the mechanic's boat payment?
No, we didn't deal with how much it would cost. We didn't deal with costs at all. We were on a 8080, a 2 megahertz 8080, running a very interesting fourth that had extra blocks that we would bring into memory, so that, because 64K was nowhere near enough. But it was an interesting fourth, and most of it was developed by Fourth Incorporated, and then I rewrote it so that it became stable. By about the third version of it, it was a stable and we could actually sell something.
I remember My first real computer, I think, was an Atari ST. And I added memory, and I reached the point where I had a meg of memory, and I thought that that was an awful lot of memory.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we got it up to so that we could do 2 64K banks, but I can't remember anymore. It's been too long. I've forgotten more than I ever knew. That this adventure back into doing the PF database stuff, that was my bread and butter. I worked that database system and actually made it public. And but as I was trying to work on it again, I couldn't remember anything. I had to read my own documentation and found a bug in my documentation. That's just the way it goes.
Aren't you glad you wrote enough down so that you could figure it out?
I did write enough down that I could figure out that where the bug was and what the bug was, and have no interest in going back and fixing it. I occasionally pick up Forth and play with it, and do have a thing in, I now work in Zephyr, real-time operating system, and I can actually put Forth into there in the native POSIX mode, where it's really just running on Linux, where the Zephyr RTOS is running on Linux. And I can put Forth in there, putting it onto random processors is a little bit more interesting, and I may do that someday, but don't have time now. I'm actually doing work through the meeting, and I'm sorry, but I have work to do. I have too much work to do. They're actually hiring an architect along with me and a few other people. We've got too much work to do and not enough time to do it. It's just the classic project of overambition. But we're getting there.
If you weren't busy, you'd be broke and bored.
I'm never bored. I am perpetually broke, but I'm never bored.
All right, now if I may change the subject, I noticed a new sign up. We've got hundreds, literally hundreds of people signed up for Meetup. If you're not signed up for Meetup for our group, I strongly encourage you to do so. If nothing else, it could be a point of pride for us that we've got all these people signed up. A recent sign up was this guy, Richard Hare. And if, Richard, would you care to tell us what your first Forth was, where you are?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Hello?
We hear you.
Okay. So I'm kind of late to the game, actually. I have a bachelor's in computer science back in '91. But I've been interested in like parallel programming and educational platforms as well. And so I've spent a little bit of time with the Parallax P1 and the P2, and actually discovered Forth in that domain and became more and more interested in it because I like the idea of being able to use a very minimal architecture to get something done. So I like the idea of like distributed processes and not necessarily the cliche of IoT with connections to the internet, but distributed minimal computing devices. And I think Forth is an excellent architecture for that. So that's where I'm spending most of my time and getting interested in the MSP 30. The ESP 32s are interesting as well, but I kind of like the minimal hardware architecture of the ESP 430.
So let me repeat, if you're not on Meetup, sign up for Meetup so that we can have bigger numbers. Because look at our bigger numbers and say, oh, they've got big numbers. Jürgen? Hi, Jürgen. It's good to see you. What was your first fourth? You're still muted.
Sorry, I was on the wrong screen. I couldn't see the unmute, but here I am. Well, I'm probably in this group, I'm the odd one out. I'm not software, and I'm basically coming from a completely different direction. The first time I got involved in Forth really was when I got about 40 years ago a nice book called Starting Forth, and I still have it, but I never did anything with it. But then about 10 years ago, I started working as a consultant, and as part of that, I got in contact with MPE, and that led to trying to promote Forth. And this led then to what people might know is my Forth bookshelf. About 20 books about Forth on Amazon. Quite a few of them are from Ting, and all of these people knew that one could download it and print it out free, but having it in your hand as an ebook or as a real printed book was a different experience. And that's what I did. Asked the guys if it's okay, and then reworked the book and published them. And that's what I'm still doing. There are still a few, I think, of Ting's books that he asked me to publish, and I haven't had the time. So let's hope that I'll find the time to do that, because it is important what he did. And I'm really appreciating the possibility, the way that people agreed to have him published. And that's about what I can say.
Are these previously unpublished works by Ting?
No, they're all ones that are available. I'm not doing anything secret, and I don't have anything of the people that they haven't done, but or published. But I haven't had the time to convert it, because it's quite a lot of work, and that's what people underestimate. It's not just take a PDF and publish. It's basically going through all of it. And that's basically where I got working on Forth a bit, doing these books and trying them out. Going through the examples and see if they really work. Because otherwise, I would have probably very negative feedback on the books. That's what I don't like. That's it from my side then.
Thank you, Jürgen. Travis, would you care to tell us your first Forth and any related incidents? And first of all, where are you from? Where are you?
Oh, I just heard what you're saying.
Where are you today? And what was your first Forth, Travis?
My first Forth was Fickle. I heard about it from Dr. Dobbs' journal, which I had a subscription to at the time. I heard of Yerke's Forth because the second computer my family got was an old Mac 2SI, and the previous owner was a programmer who had a wide collection of CDs associated with various shareware and such, and one of the pieces of shareware was Yerkes 4, but it didn't come with any documentation that I really could understand, so I never actually used it. Whereas Fickle and DDJ, they had text code examples and stuff like that in there. And also because by then we had the internet, so I could look up stuff on Forth online, which was useful at the time. And that's how I got really exposed to Forth.
Thank you, Travis. Rolf, do you care to tell us? Where are you, Rolf? I think Rolf is looking for his unmute or something. Edward Borowski, you're up. Okay. Joe, have you gone? Joe O'Connor?
Not yet. I'd be glad to introduce myself. Okay. My name's Joe O'Connor. I'm from Connecticut. My first experience with Forth was in the early 1990s. I went through a catalog. I ordered a bunch of shareware. When the floppy disk came in, one of them had Tom Zimmer's FPC on it. So I looked at that. I got interested enough to become a member of the Forth interest group. I got a magazine on a regular basis. I didn't use it at first for much practical stuff. What I would do is I took a class in assembly language, and I would do my homework assignment in FPC first and then rewrite it in assembly. I found that helped organize my thinking. I started using Forth practically when I came upon Norman Smith's book about building your own programming language in C++. He had a version of Forth, and I got inspired enough by that to build my own language. The first rendition was in Delphi. So I put together a bunch of projects in that. Many years later, I did a version of Forth in Excel, and then I've done a couple of others, JavaScript, Python. Also, I have a version in Perl and a partial version in C#. So they all are based on the same idea. So that's pretty much it.
Dave, have you gone? Dave Jaffe?
I have not gone, and I'm ready. So my first encounter with Forth was back in the CPM days, and some of you may recall there was a bunch of 8-inch floppy public domain shareware programs flying around. And on one of them was a program called Stoic, STOIC, which was a version of Forth, and I think it was on multiple 8-inch floppies in source code, probably for an 8080 CPU, but I never assembled or used it. My first real use of Forth didn't come until I was out here in California. I live in Mountain View, and I was working on some projects and looked at using Forth, Incorporated's Forth as in an embedded application program for wheelchair application, but that didn't work out. But soon after that, I found a version of Forth called Jib Ray Forth, which was actually a pretty interesting post-target application where you can assemble a 8K kernel that would be on your target system and connect it by a serial port to your PC and download source code and interactively debug it, and then save the whole thing to EPROMs, and I use that for several projects. I also have used FPC in the past, but not a real big Forth user right now. That's it for me.
So who hasn't gone? All right. So any other announcements, rumors, gossip? Any ideas for future presentations? I encourage you to present at these exciting proceedings.
I guess I would like to put a pitch in for this project that I and Karthik Krishna and also Lynn George, who's in aerospace. Actually, she's got a book out on essentially the mechanics of orbital mechanics and so forth that she's putting together. But in any case, this whole effort to make a K-12 curriculum that is really based on hard science, starting with the most fundamental thing that CO2 is the building block of all life, and the idea that somehow or other, after 2 billion years of driving the 30% atmosphere, CO2 atmosphere, down to like 3 or 4 molecules per 10,000 of air is dangerous. And the fact that the physics fails at an undergraduate level, or even a high school AP physics level, anybody who's got any interest or can contribute to that effort, I think it's something that's needed, and there's interest globally in having a curriculum that really goes through the hard science. Oh, and one of the things is when I'm pushing to go and give some talks at my 60th reunion at Culver on APL and Forth, these 2 languages which are outside most people's kins, and so hopefully we'll see whether I can give a class to interested kids at Culver, which is quite an interesting school. Click it and see. But
Great. At my high school, the only thing I hear from the high school is that they want money. It's great that you can give talks at a high school reunion.
well, Culver's got a ridiculous amount of money. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's no such thing, but it's an incredible campus. And one of the things, they're redoing a bunch of buildings, and I don't know whether anybody's heard of KKR, but actually the most famous perhaps from the movie taking over RJ Reynolds Tobacco, taking it private. But KKR is a major, well, not exactly hedge fund or whatever, but Roberts actually is a Culver grad, and so now they got the Roberts Physics Building, and actually, what's her name? The library now is Huffington. The woman Huffington is, but they got a lot of very accomplished alumni that it's quickculver.org and you see. But I hope that I can go and do a little pitch for fourth and APL as being languages that these kids would probably never heard of otherwise, but are essentially to me the two important ends of the computing language spectrum. Nothing else in between is admissible.
All right. Well, before we pull the plug, I'd like to ask those of you in the Bay Area or willing to find yourself in the Bay Area in July at the time of the Zoom meeting, please drop me a line and let me know that you're planning to join us for lunch at Armadillo Willie's after the Zoom meeting. I see Doug putting up the finger, so we'll if I remember, I'll add you to the list. I think we kind of run out of gas unless somebody else has anything else that they'd like to say. I think, Brad, it's time to we ceremoniously start the recorder and unceremoniously stop it. So thank you all for joining.